Hello, my name is Carol May Whittick and welcome to Her Conversations, Tools for the Awakening Woman. Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. This is the optimal state to embody in order to attract our highest desires. Who's the awakening woman? She's a woman who's seeking a greater possibility in her reality and looking for solutions. She knows being awakened is not a lofty ideal but a necessity. If she can transform herself, she can change the world. Her conversations will introduce you to talented women who speak to your spirituality, your sensuality and your soul. They share their stories and explain how they are in service to the world. So let their words and these conversations embolden and inspire you. My guest on this week's Her Conversations is Barrister Maureen Obi, who specialises in family law. During our conversation, she talks about how she brings a more heart-centred approach in what is essentially a very logic-driven environment. She talks about her work to increase emotional intelligence and her move into politics with the Women's Equality Party. But as always, I begin by asking my guests. Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. When do you feel you're most her?
When I have been, when I've fully meditated, what tends to happen is that's when that higher energetic resonance just shines through. So at the beginning of each day, that's probably when when I feel her the most, because that's when I start my day of meditation and some rituals.
First things I want to say as well is, like, normally, you know, when I'm looking for women to bring onto the podcast, I usually kind of meet around social media, or there'll be kind of links of people that I know or something like that. And we met in just such a completely different way.
Yes, we did.
But it was like super beautiful the way that we met, and it really reconfirmed something for me. Because just to give like potted history to anyone who's listening about that, is I had literally just come back to London, and I'd been just going through a period of like really trying to like move my things forward, facing a lot of resistance from people who really didn't understand what I was doing with her, not seeing the point of it, and me just really trying to hold on to the vision and the mission of it as well. And just really experiencing two camps of people. There were people who were really into it and really understood, and then there were others who were like so opposed to it, so offended by it, and I'm in the middle just going, I didn't realize that it would cause so much contention, because it's just a very gentle, easy thing. And I sat on a tube, and we just got talking, and it was brilliant to just like speak to you, to the point that we actually got off the train and had like a long chat. Yeah,
that's right, we did. I think what's really interesting about that was that the whole of how that began was because of a child and a baby, a boy who was sat on his father's knee and was interacting with the world in a way that we, the adults, didn't see quite. I don't think we quite got what he was doing. And I think my first question was, or statement was, why do we adults expect the child to smile and laugh because we say so? It was quite clear to me he was enjoying his environment, in that he was looking around and just taking it all in, and just being in the moment. And I just found it really interesting how we, the adults, and that's when I made that comment to you. That's how we started the conversation. I actually think it's quite relevant, because I am a person who's focused on children. I think that there is something that I'm to do in this world that helps with the young. And knowing who and what they are and what they've come to do. And so I just think that the whole thing was divinely
orchestrated. Absolutely, it couldn't have been better. And also, what then got me even more fascinated with you was then after we'd said, why do we expect the child to respond? And I think I said something like, when do we have a cutoff that we decide that we're not going to wave back at people and we're going to be so insular? And then within two very short stops, we had, I'd found out that you're a barrister, but then not only do you work in this very corporate environment, but you also then have this real kind of spiritual aspect to yourself, and you bring those into your work. Can you just talk a little bit more about that as well? Because that's what kind of drew me into you, and I'm like, I need to speak to her more, so yeah.
Well, again, what's really interesting is that I have been in the legal profession for the last 30 years, and I've never felt that I fitted it at all. And there have been periods in this journey that I have been on when I have just questioned, I think when I started, I was trying to conform to it, whatever that is, and conforming to the kind of structures that are around the legal profession is quite rigid. So how you look, how you speak, and I always kind of had this heart place, wearing my heart, literally, almost my heart on my hands. You could see it, and that didn't sit and doesn't. Well, I don't know if it sits now, but certainly at the time, it didn't sit well with what I believed was required of me, the structure. So anyway, I journeyed on, always questioning myself, never really questioning the structure, never really saying there's anything wrong with that, or saying that there needed to be anything to do about the structure, but that it was me, that I needed to constantly review everything that I was doing and making sure that I wasn't harmful either to myself or to anyone else. And that's quite, a difficult thing when you're in the legal profession, because there's so much blame, and it's a very negative environment. That's what's got to be said. So my journey has been a really interesting one, because I think when I started, I was unconscious. Where I am now is I'm very conscious. And the difference is that what that means in terms of how I turn up is I just turn up as me. I really don't have any kind of need to put on any airs and graces. I am good enough, more than good enough, to turn up in the environment. But equally, what it means is that I'm aware of this. I'm aware of what it requires of me, of people, and I reject it. I don't take it on. I do what I need to do. I get in and out. And people have said, and I don't know whether I accept this, but I'm a bit like a Mary Poppins. Right. You come with your bag of tricks, or maybe not. You just turn up. You come to fix whatever needs to be fixed, or look at whatever needs to be looked at. And then you do that, and off you go. And, as quickly as you've arrived, you go the same way. As soon as it's time for you to exit, you're gone. And you leave whatever you leave behind. And the idea is always to leave better, leave something better behind. So that's been the journey. So I'm just going to say a little bit more about that, because there's been periods when, like I've said, when I've thought, this is not, I can't do, there's something, very wrong with me, because this is what I feel. Yet I have to work in an environment where feeling is deemed not appropriate, not something that you should base any kind of decisions on. And I'm going to tell you and the world, it is the place to base your decision. It's the only place to do so, because if it feels right in the heart, it is right. And I don't mean right as in right and wrong, but if it feels comfortable, then you must journey with that. You mustn't reject it as being something that is not of value, because it is of value, and it will always be of value to whoever receives it as well. Not saying what that value will be, but it will be of value. So that's been the journey. And now I just turn up, and I do, obviously I'm a lawyer. I've still got the intellectual ability to address whatever's in front of me, but I come with this feel with your mind and think with your heart. And thinking with your heart, it's so contrary to what people have been used to.
Yeah, that when you do the opposite, it's like you're deemed crazy, And you talked about, there a point in time where you entered the profession and you were not conscious and you became conscious. Was there a particular incident or string of events that actually sparked that rise in conscious within you?
Right. So when I use that word unconscious, the fact that fact is, I've always been spiritually aware. When I started in the profession, I was. But nevertheless was unconscious of the power of that to move me forward in whatever I was to do, whatever I was to, So I went through a lot of stuff where what you might call depressed states, when I just was not, I wasn't good enough. This strive to be better and better, but the problem was I wasn't quite sure what I was being better at, except maybe being better at being human, at being a human being. And that was all right. I didn't mind that evolution, trying to, enhance myself. Didn't mind that, but it just didn't fit with the work. So there were clashes. So I get points in my journey where I couldn't go any further. The ceilings that were there, which were not seen, but were very there. And I didn't understand. I couldn't understand it. And so I say in that state, I was unconscious because I didn't understand it, knew that it wasn't the best. It wouldn't produce the best of people, but didn't quite know what was to be done or what I was doing in it. So certain things would happen. So I'd get, like, for instance, even up until this point, I've applied to become a judge. I've applied to become a recorder. I've done other things, and I've been refused. And some of the refusals, in terms of the way that they were presented, were really personal. Now, I'm going to tell you this. I know full well I can do that job standing on my head. In fact, it's the value to everyone of me being there would be enormous. But no, it's not a but in a negative. But what was clear was that when I was making these applications, I was fairly confident in myself that I would achieve. But then when I didn't, what it did was to knock me right back. It was like, and I'd be on the floor, and I wouldn't be able to get up. And I didn't really know what to do, and I was ashamed. I felt ashamed. You weren't successful. And all of this sort of stuff that was going on. And it's funny because it would take, so then recovery was long. It used to take like a long time. I'd have to really work through whatever was going on before I would stand up. But the key thing was that I did get back up. It did not, whatever the thing was that was happening, didn't defeat me. It was a temporary kind of stop, but nevertheless a significant one, because it did stop me. It didn't, that flow wasn't there anymore. I had to find it. And so this was always happening. I'd go so far and then I'd get hauled back. I'd go on the floor. And when I say I go on the floor, that is me being taken out by what's happening. And there was a lack of control in that sense. I didn't really feel that I was in control. And there was some other kind of force that was going on here that was preventing my movement. And then what happened was, and this is so recent that I sometimes think, oh, how come it was just so recent? But what happened was, the worst thing that could happen to me happened in my professional career, which was that I was taken to the Bar Council, and then they took proceedings against me. So, I'm a lawyer. They take proceedings. You might think that that's not too big a thing, but it was, because my whole reputation, my whole integrity and everything about me was just out there on the line. And somebody was going to take that from me for something that actually did not happen in truth. So I went through this process, and I was doing it alone. I did not feel that there was any kind of support that I could muster, apart from my own personal kind of family support and really close to me. And then I got suspended. I couldn't believe it. Now, this thing that happened, I remember walking outside of the tribunal when they'd made the decision. I'd already said inside the tribunal when the decision was made, I said, "You're joking. What did I do?" I could not believe this had happened. But it spelled the worst possible thing. When I walked out of that tribunal, I was in bits. I remember my crying was that crying that, you don't want to have. It's the one that's so uncontrollable. You never know when it's going to end and what actually is going to happen to you, because it's just. But I can remember just walking down the road, tears flooding down my face. I knew people were looking at me because I was in such a dysregulated state. I was crying, weeping, wailing, kind of walking down the road. But when I got to the end of the road, the realization was I was still alive, that this thing had not taken my life. It hadn't taken anything from me, and that the decision didn't matter, because that's the process. That process was meant and designed to do that. And I don't have to buy into it and sort of lie down and die. And I hadn't died. And that's when it shifted. It was just like eyes. I mean, I think my eyes were open all the time before in a different way. But that's when it shifted. It was like nothing can touch. I'm being told nothing can touch me. Not really. It cannot touch. If it does, it's because I allow it. And on this, I'm not allowing. So that's when it shifted. And that was only last year, so it was 2018. But I mean, I think it's not the final shift, but it's the most significant shift, because it was the one that said, Maureen, turn up as you are, turn up always with that integrity. Just turn up and just be. You don't have to do, just be.
You talk about ceilings, and and as a general rule and as a general belief, there is, especially when it comes to the bar, there are so few people of colour within there, and then also women of colour as well. How have you held your space in there with those perceived kind of barriers against you? And like you say, you're applying for things that that you could do standing on your head, and yet you're getting rejected. How have you felt that perception of what is available for a woman and a woman of colour has been a reason why you've been kind of rejected from things that you knew that you were more than capable of doing?
Okay, so first thing about that is, I think that I'm going to say this. I've got a personal journey in the profession, and my journey will be different from other women of colour. We all have our own journeys, but there are some things that are common. And so the common things I will say is that there is a ceiling, definitely, and there is a ceiling. It's really interesting because women of colour against women who are Indigenous, their journey is very different, a lot easier than in my perception. Yeah. But that does not mean that it is easier. It just means in my perception, because my journey has been tough. So there is a ceiling. It does, collectively as women of colour, we face that. And each individual person then has to use their own means to maneuver their way through it. And so I have used mine. Mine is this. I'm bloody minded. If you tell me I can't do it, sorry, that ain't happening. I'm going to do it. And if you tell me I cannot say something, I'm going to say it. And so but backing me, and that's what I've got to say, has been the spiritual journey that I've been on. That's just backed me. I don't even know how to explain it, and I'm not going to try because I don't think I've got the answer. But when I turn up with all that is me and all that I've been given and gifted, and it's my absolute duty to make sure that I use those gifts for the highest good. So I do that. So that's how I do it. I don't know how other people do it, because I don't drink. Yeah, I'm not turned to any kind of substances. I did have an addiction, and that an addiction came out in terms of food. So I would, comfort eat and eat the things that were not going to fuel my body well. My own personal body well. For other people, it's different things. So I did have that. So I had to face that, and that's now just so different, and is not impeding any kind of progress that I'm making on any level, on any of my, spheres that I have to go into. It's not having the impact it did. So the answer is the ceiling is there. It's always about how the individual, in the end of the day, deals with that ceiling. And I've got to say this because, women of color, yes, the journey is really tough, but I don't say, and I can't say this because I can't know it, that other people's journey, so that is women who are indigenous, disabled, women who have got specific health needs, or men who are got issues themselves or whatever, don't have a difficulty in journeying. We all do, because we're all in the matrix. We're all in it at the same time. We're just experiencing it at different kind of places. And what that means is that, for me, I'll just speak about myself. What that means, I believe that I now interact with everyone on the basis that, on this basis, we are the same. There is no difference between us. Our physical garments, our cultures, our color, our genders, whatever, are not the place that I place emphasis. We are the same. We're having a journey here, and we're all experiencing it in a different way. The idea, though, is that we come back to oneness, that we all come back to being one, that we appreciate that we are one, and not, all the way in which we have been made to talk only about the divisions, what divides us, what makes us different. I'm the same as you. I'm a human being, and I'm having an experience here. My experience is different from yours, but we're both human beings. We're no different, no better, no worse. We're one. So that's what my journey has taught me. So if I hope this makes sense. So I turn up in the world. I'm a woman. I have a physical garment of a female. I'm a woman of color. I come from an African background. I have various other things that have happened to me, so which we may or may not come to talk about. And that when I turn up, all the experiences that I then encounter shift me, move me, shape me. And when I turn up now, I'm not complete yet, because of course you never complete the journey. There's always evolution. But I am the best version of myself so far. And I'm loving that version. I like it. I like who I am. And I want to give whatever I have to everyone. Because if they can experience some of the things I've experienced, they too will love the person that they are. And they, and fulfill their full potential.
Something else popped into my mind as well. When we're talking about, like the way that your awakening or your consciousness or your spirituality or your understanding of like emotional subtleties and the fact that there's no barriers and, we are all one. It's like, we sat there and we talked about this. How do you then bring that into when you're doing your work, when you're in court and you're dealing within the kind of what looks like very rigid and strict tenets of the law? How do you then bring that fluidity and that openness and that real understanding of the fact that we're actually all really playing a game into that space?
So first of all, it's one of the things that I don't do, is turn up and say I know more than anyone else there. So because that's that shuts down the barrier. So I don't do that. What I'm about is just turning up as me, but doing this job in that way as me. So again, so I can't really explain it other than to say this. All the experiences that I've had to date, everything that I have learned and who I intrinsically am turns up in court. And because of that, I am able to do the job. So my thing is that just let me do my job. I don't have any other need of the environment or wherever it is that I go. Just allow me to do that which I've come to do. And that's what I do. So when I open my mouth and when I speak, what I say is, you can tell it isn't even I don't do anything specifically. Do you understand? I just turn up and do me, and I apply me to the circumstance I'm in. So for instance, one of the things when I stand before a judge, doesn't matter the level of the judge, I give infinite respect to that individual, not because of their station, because of their job title, but because of who they are, meaning they're the same as me. We're all individual gods, that's not coming out quite right. So the oneness is there. So we all come from the one source, but we all turn up as individuals with our specific kind of gifts. So I give respect to that individual because of that they are the same as me. They're doing the journey like me. And I'm not afraid of them because they hold this. So I could go, it could be, the president of the United States or Russia. It could be, the man down the road who's not got a home because he doesn't have a home. They are equally respected. Yes, I bow to the God in them because that's what I believe is correct for me. Correct is the wrong word. That's how I am. That's how I operate. So when I go into court, everyone has that respect. So I just do my job. I apply it. You can see it. Sometimes people don't, a lot of the time, I know they don't understand what I'm doing. I know that, but I just do it. I know they don't understand because the environment is very narrow and very rigid. And so the rigidity is safe for them. That narrowness is safe. So when I come along, I make it unsafe because, but it's not, it's true. It's not true that it's unsafe. I just don't stay within the boxes.
Lines. Do you have an example of that you can bring to mind?
Okay. So recently, I had to go into the court and argue for a particular assessment that would assist everyone in understanding how this family could be moved on. And there was a resistance from everybody. The big players in the room, and the big players in the room when it comes to the work I do are the local authority, and then at the other end of the line is the children's solicitor or barrister. So they are the big players because the local authority bring the case. So they're the ones who want to remove a child or do something in relation to a family. And at the other end, the children's guardian is the eyes and the ears of the court, because of course the court can't go out and investigate every single case. So it has to have someone to do that. And so they're the big players. So if you get no's from those two, then you're already on the back foot. You're not in a good place because they're not listening. They've closed their door. So your job is to persuade that the fact that these two have said no, or others may have said no, isn't where the judge should go. So this was the case. Now there's a big background to this. So I'm not going to go into it, but these parents were just up against it. They could not be it's not possible for them to move forward because of things that have happened in the past. So my job was to come and persuade, and I did that. And I simply did that, like I say, by really appealing to that inner person. I don't know if I can explain this, but you touch people heart to heart. So the intellect is all very good. So like I said, I can argue. I've got those skills. That's what I've been gifted with, the skill to persuade, legal argument. That's fine. But what I do additionally is communicate heart to heart. So the outcome of that is often I will succeed in getting what is required. And that's what happened in this case. And in this particular case, the judge said, I can see what you're doing. This is a very, 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 very clear thing that needs to be addressed. And if we address it, it then means we're in a better position to move forward. He didn't use those words, but he said something of a similar ilk. So the point is, what I do is not tangible in the way that you may want it to be. You know, tangibility is always about something solid and you could see it with your eyes. What happens with what I do is that you can see it, it does manifest, but it's not so obvious. It's not a resounding, oh, that's what happened. But it's something else. And that's what I do, using my skill. So of course, when I go in, I've already looked up the law. I'm not doing, I'm not going there going, oh, speak to the heart, speak to that. It's not, I'm doing my job, yeah. But I just bring that extra dimension of what we speak heart to heart. When you speak heart to heart to people, it's very rare that communication is ineffective. Usually it's very effective when you do it. But there's a lot of people are resistant to it. They don't want to do that. They don't want to because it means maybe they're more vulnerable and they don't like what I do, but I do it anyway. And I have a reputation. I haven't courted it. It's there. I don't even know what really it is, but people come to me to be helped. They ask specifically for me to represent them because of the way in which I work. So whatever it is, Carol, to be honest with you, I don't know what it is. I just turn up. And I think that's the key. I think everyone, if there's any kind of advice, if there were any advice that I would give anybody, you need to turn up as your authentic, real self, not the one that the Matrix expects of you, which puts you in a box somewhere, or a variety of boxes. You turn up as you. And when you do that, life is just so different. I don't know if I've answered the question again. But
you have. And you're saying turn up as you, and it's once you've made that level of self-inquiry and given yourself space, and you're talking about you're meditating every day, then the idea of who you are starts to become clearer, and then we spend the rest of our lives working out exactly what that definition is. It's like, how do you feel that it's possible for people to start finding out who they are? Because like you say, most people will just follow a path that will lead them to a success, check the boxes and therefore you're successful. But then many then get to the point where they've done all the things that they should have done, that should have got them to a level of they've probably got the outside trappings and the tangible evidence of them doing the right thing, but then they don't have it because they don't have that you-ness. How did you find your you-ness?
Well, I think some people's pathways are just difficult, and they're meant to be difficult because the lessons or whatever you learn from them are meant to move you, shift you, expand you. So I think all I can say is everything must come from the heart. Everything. When it doesn't come from the heart, it's usually not going to produce some lasting effects, positive lasting effects in a person's life or the life of your community. But when things come from the heart, they last. So the first thing is to turn within. The first thing is. So the meditation and the turning within is so important because the outside world can have you up and down the hills, over there, it can just shift you every place. And what everyone has, and just are not aware of it, is that they've got a core, an inner core that actually will ground them and will help them be successful in whatever they want to be. And you know what success for me is? It's that happiness. It's being at peace. It's not money. It's not things. They've all bought. I tell you, the last time I went, this is a little bit of a revelation for me. It was really, really, really interesting, but only if you get me, and you might not get this. So I've gone to various countries. I go on cruises with my friends, and have done that for the last 8-9 years. And we've gone to various places. So we were in both India and Thailand, and we're not there for very long. So I'm not going to say I know anything about these regions. I'm just going to say I've been there. And places that we visited were the temples. I'm very interested in temples and churches and places of worship, because it often tells you about the heart of the people, where the heart of those people are. Anyway, so we were in I think it was Thailand we were in, and we went to these temples, Buddha temples, lots of different types of temples, but anyway, Buddha. And the first thing that struck me, and it's not a judgment, is there's a lot of paraphernalia here, a lot of things, meaning, you know, lots of little Buddhas, lots of other statues, things, all over. And we went to this particular place, and they allowed us to go into their kind of storeroom. I think just to have a look around. But what was really interesting was that when people die, you cannot take any of these things with you. And where do they end up? They end up in the temple, in this temple, or in this particular place, in this particular country. And it just struck me, there you go. These things are so not relevant. They are so irrelevant. But we place a lot of store on them. People place a lot of store on having a figure of the Christ or the Buddha or whatever it is. I'm not in judgment here. I just kind of thought, well, actually, none of those things matter. What really matters is what's in your heart. Your heart condition is often, and not as in a heart condition, meaning you've got one, but the condition of the heart that you have, whether it's closed, whether it's expanding, it's growing, is the key to your success. So the first thing you have to do is go inside. You have to speak within, because the without cannot give you because if it, like I've already said, you'll just end up like this kind of, they talk about the reef in the water. So you go, and then the water will be doing its whatever it does, because that's what it does. And that reef is just being thrashed over there, everywhere. And so there's no direction for you. You're just all over. I say that about this reef thing. One thing is clear, though, is that it's rooted somewhere. And that root is what I'm talking about. So even though the top is flashing around, and you go to the root, it is solid. It ain't moving. That's what we are. Even though the outside part that is appearing to the world is in disarray, you have to go back to the core. When you go back to the core, it's not doing that. It's solid and will always serve you well. So you have to, that probably isn't a very good explanation, but the idea is the root of you, the core of you, it will give you the answers you need. So you've got to go back inside. You have to go there. And that's a hard thing, because, you've got to face, everybody has to face all the things that they think about themselves that are not true. So we might think we're too fat, we're too thin. Oh, no, we can't. There's no possibility of us being happy because we've done X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. And all these things that will come along and just slap you in your face and tell you that you're not, whatever. So go within is my answer. I'm not saying I'm right. That's been my journey. It's helped me to this point. And, I'm going to continue, hopefully, to expand doing just that.
I was going to ask you what aspirations you have for the way that you want to show up within your work within law, or if it's going to expand out into other things. How do you envisage the expansion of yourself, and what your success will look like if you choose to continue with this as your sole career, or if you're going to branch off into other things? Because I think, like I said to you before, many of the women that I speak to on the podcast have had, long-lasting careers in the corporate world, like 10, 15, 20 years, and then have completely walked away from the corporate world and gone into the spirituality and wellness sectors. You've kept yourself there. So How are you bringing those two together for yourself?
Well, like I've said, I think there's two things I've learned. So first of all, it isn't the only thing that I do, because I run this other little organization called This One Family Matters, and it's all about raising awareness around the importance of emotional intelligence and resilience. So when I've been talking to you, I've actually been talking about that. That's really what I've been speaking on, because building your emotional intelligence and your resilience comes from experience. You don't build it simply by, like, for instance, you don't just learn to become emotional intelligence by going on a course. It's all about journeying. And EQ skills are lifelong skills, and they will produce success for everyone who applies them, irrespective of where they've come from. It's not, there is, one might say there is a formula, and that formula is applicable to everyone. But its success is dependent on you. It's not dependent on the formula. It's on whether or not you use the tool. So I've been running this organization now. I set it up about 2014. And the idea is to workshop and educate through workshops to educate people around this, raising how important it is that when you work from your heart, so emotional intelligence, all stuff, when you work from that place, you will be successful. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind. I am the living proof of that, I say. So when I stand up, I don't have to look to a book or anything else to demonstrate this. You just have to look at me and my life and what I'm doing. And that's objectively. I'm not talking about coming into the innermost regions of my life, but you can see from how I present in the world and what I do, how I do things, my interactions with the world, that I am continually expanding these skills. So that's a real big thing of mine, to raise this awareness and to say equally that this is something you can do. You don't have to go to university. You don't have to have money. You can do this using everyday things. So music, literature, books, poems, storytelling, all of these things are tools. Maybe not seen by others as that, but they are. And when you can apply them. So I sing. Singing is also another thing that I've been fortunate. I've been gifted with this voice. And I use it in every kind of way that I can, because singing is a tool. Music is a tool. Singing is a tool. Singing can bring you right back into yourself, right back into balance when maybe you're off balance, perhaps, for whatever's happened in your life. So using these everyday skills, the things that we've got, it's not about going and acquiring them. You've already got them. You just don't realize, people don't realize they can use them in order to fuel themselves, to build themselves, to expand themselves. So the answer to your question is, I'm continuing to do that job as in the corporate world because I'm able to do it. I'm not burnt out. I'm able to do it because these skills that I'm using, emotional intelligence and resilience building skills, are constantly being updated and used so that I can remain in that world and expand what I'm doing there. So, but I do have this charitable organization, and that is my baby. I want to see workshops that are being run in the way that I'm speaking. There are workshops out there about emotional intelligence. There's loads of them. It's been the buzzword for a while, but they are still very much not based on the heart. It's still using this intellect in a way that's okay, but it needs to be integrated a little bit more with the heart. And that's where I come in with the way that I approach things with the workshop. So they've not taken off. And I'm not really surprised, because I say when you don't get it, you don't get it. You have to get it. And then there's a desire then from yourself that you want to actually take the journey. And then when that happens, people turn up not because you're telling them to, because that's what they want to do. This is their journey. They're really owning it. And this is part of what I've not been able to, it hasn't happened quite yet. So when I do workshops, it's really great and they really like it. We do it over 12 weeks and get things done. And at the end of it, the people can see. And then it's up to them to journey on with it, the tools, because they're just available. So there's that. And then now, the third thing that I'm doing, I do, like I said, I have hosted a community radio show in which we use emotional intelligence and resilience building as the theme for all the music. Everything we talk about on the show, everything we do is all about, here we are, it's another song. See that journey of this particular individual, Billie Holiday? You need to take a leaf. Look at what she did and how she was. And not say that you have to be like her, but know that through that, look at what she was still able to give to the world. Her music is there constantly reminding us of her. And, anyway, so it's just the way in which I speak about. And she was a very emotionally intelligent woman. And this is the reason why, and there's loads of other women of color and men who were doing the same thing, using their emotional intelligence to journey through their lives. So hosting a community radio show is really important to me. The connection with the community, it's a really good thing to give back. And then this is what I'm doing currently. So this year when I woke up, January 1st, I said, I'm saying yes to new stuff. I'm saying yes. Anything anyone asks me to do, I'm going to say yes. Because I don't know where it's going to take me. I'm not going to put anything in the way of myself by saying no, no, it's yes. And then if it doesn't pan out, it doesn't pan out. But if it does, it will take me off somewhere. So I had an invitation from one of my friends who said, Maureen, you need to come and join this and do this thing. Come and become a party member. And I've resisted being part of the political arena for a very long time. But I told you this year, I said, I'm saying yes to everything. So just because I did that in the past did not mean that I was going to do that now. So she said, and I trust her. She's my friend. I have she's a love connection there. And so when she asked me, I said yes, because I knew where she's coming from. She's not going to ask me to do anything that's going to be harmful to me. So that trust was enough to propel me forward. Then what happened was just surreal. Because when I go forward, and there's very few days between when she asked me and when I'm to do this thing, and I turn up what they call hustings, because I'm not in the political world, didn't really understand all of that. Got there, and you just have to speak. So this is what I say to you about turning up as yourself, because I just turned up as myself. There was nothing else, just Maureen, and they voted for me, and I was selected. And I'm like. I was literally in the room going, what's just happened there? Because that's such a powerful thing.
Yeah.
Because that was really powerful. Because I said yes. I did what I needed to do in order to present myself before that arena. And they said yes. And it's like, there's self-belief. There's all sorts of things that were going on there. I'm not even going to go through the whole thing of it. But then I was saying, and then it was like, oh, what have I done? Do I want to enter this political? And the answer is yes, because I have something to contribute.
Yeah.
And it's important that contribution is made by me and not sidelined or said, oh, well, no, you can't turn up in that way. I'm turning up anyhow I can to give this message. So since then, I've had to do a few public speak, and every time I do it, people are saying, I mean, I've got to say this because I'm not aware of myself really in that way, like how others look at me. I can't see that. I can only see it from my, where I'm sitting. And you're very good at this. There is a confidence we have when you open your mouth. I'm like, okay, then I've got to accept it because it's what I'm being told. What I'm not doing, though, is not allowing that to be an ego-driven thing. I don't, okay, but that doesn't alter me. I'm still going to just turn up. So this is my current journey. So I'm now a candidate for the 2020 GLA Super Constituency area of Islington, Hackney and Waltham Forest.
Amazing.
And that is phenomenal for me. I'm just like, when did that happen? Because yesterday that weren't there. Today it is. So what will tomorrow bring? I am open. Wherever it takes me. I think now I'm not going to define myself because I never was just the barrister, the lawyer. I never was just the mother. I'm a mother of 3 children. Never was just I was never just this or just, I'm all of those things and more, whatever else, life, I'm just saying yes to life. So I think I've answered that question. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
And I am open to, although I'm taking one thing, all of these things, and one of the things I know I have to speak to myself about is there is possibility that you can get overwhelmed by whatever is going on in your life, and then there's no focus, nothing happens because you're just overwhelmed. So I, in a way, have devised in my own mind, right, I just put things in compartments. So you're in that's where you are. So I'm going to deal with that. So when I've dealt with that, I'll move to that. And when I've dealt with that, so I don't kind of open all of the things up at the same time, because it can overwhelm you when you really think about if I thought about all the things I was doing, maybe I would just sit down and not do it.
It happens. Yeah, you answered it perfectly, and it's just great to hear what you are doing, and the fact that a spirit like yourself is able to then just like move into the political arena, because I think what we're seeing now across the world is more women who are coming from a more heart-centered space, moving into the political arena. And initially there's a lot of kind of like, what's she doing, this but then when people are actually kind of listening to what these women are saying and the emotional intelligence that they are using to say the things, it's maybe we've got to start trying a different way of how politics and leaders are in the world, because the kind of the boyish and the masculine, and by masculine I don't always necessarily mean male, because previously women who've gone into politics have adopted very masculine traits.
Absolutely.
Because that's probably what they felt they had to do in order to be there, but then they forgot a lot of their feminine wiles and their feminine strengths and that emotional softness and intelligence, that even though I say softness is not by any means weak, it's soft. But
let me tell you something. It's not interrupting you, but I just got to say this because I think it's really important. People should not equate being feminine with anything that is weak. Because let me tell you something. When I turn up, me, Maureen, I turn up as a woman. Don't cross me, because if you cross me, you will see that I'm whatever. I am powerful in my own right. There's no question that when you work from the heart, that there is a weakness, and that is a real misconception, and it's relied upon by those who want to keep the divine or the feminine out of the work that is required on this planet. And there's so much work required to bring it back to balance. And the other thing is quite important, that this feminine quality exists within men, and there are men who absolutely use it and are wonderful in that sense, because it's really good to see it and know that it exists. So, but you know what? Women are ruling now. This is the women's time. Women, the feminine is what is going to sway the world. So let's not just talk about our individual little places where we are. The world is changing. Just look out. When I look out my eye, I'm like, yeah, man.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I'm part of this. I'm so glad I'm here right now on the planet right now, not tomorrow or yesterday. Now,
read about it. To actually be part
and to be part of it. And know that in my life, this is happening. Not after I'm dead. It's not gonna now. And that's for every. And the thing about it is, it's not just about women, because it's going to have such a positive impact on everyone, everybody. The world will be different and transformed, and we're seeing that happening across the globe. So I've got to say that as part of this, because I don't want anyone to think that, certainly of me, that I think that doing what I'm doing is anything other than what I should be doing as a woman.
Of course.
This is the woman that I turn up as, and this is what I should is not even that word, but you know what I mean. I turn up as me, and all of us should do that. So I think I interrupted your train, but yes, sorry. Just
say it, because it just kind of like put an extra layer of affirmation and confirmation on anything, that I would have been asking you. So it's definitely the way. And like you say, also exciting when you view your position that you thought, do you know what, of all the times that I'm going to incarnate, I'm going to do it now, so that all the things that I've been through and all the experiences that I've had to put up with, like you say, that have kind of given me another layer, and like stripped down certain things that were not necessary so that I could grow and move and move and move, have actually put me in this position where I am, and I can actually be a player within the change of it as well, because it's you know, I can't remember the whole saying. It's like there are people who make things happen, watch what happened, and wondered what happened. So it's you know, it's exciting to be like part of the mix where you're like in the trenches and digging it and doing the work, and then also speaking to others that can, you know, we can't fully see where it's going to be, but we're at the point where we're like, there's something happening. There's this kind of bustle of people, of people, of women and men as well, getting ready. I think it's confusing for some men because they're not understanding their role, in particular if they're still holding on to this very old, stale view of what a man is, and a very kind of like toxic and rigid way of like, this is what a man does. But you know, we only have to look out into the world at the figures that are embodying that dated type of masculine and seeing what it's doing. It's just causing destruction, and it's looking more dated as time goes on. And then the new wave of masculine who are also allowing space for women who are allowing space for that new man. You know, it's a different kind of partnership and a different kind of dance that is just creating a new excitement that we're like, things can really change. You know, we're having to bring down the you know, secrets are being exposed. You know, you know, you've been in the law, you would have seen stuff.
All of the laws is one place, and there's lots of changes there, but across the globe, this is a period of revelation. All things are coming to the surface. Things that were hidden are no longer hidden. And when you can see, you can be, and you can do. And that's what's exactly happening. This is really exciting times. And I would not wish anyone to be confined by what they think, right, is happening. Because you know what the appearance is. I have this little saying, it's not mine. I know I've picked it from somewhere. I have no clue where I got it from. But fear is what most people have. And that prevents them from moving forward in their lives.
For sure.
Fear of whatever it is, whatever they think is happening and what they're told. But what actually does fear mean? You see, fear tells you what it means, but you don't pay attention. So fear is an acronym, you could say, for fake evidence appearing real. And it ain't. It's never real. Not real. So we've got a lot of appearances in the world. If you were to look out at the world, oh my gosh, you would really be in a state of despair if you were to just take all the appearances. But if you, like I say, work with your heart and you are able to see beyond the appearances, there's huge change. This is good. It's also, and this is where I think that maybe the issue is, what's being revealed is so horrific. Yeah? So all the stuff that's coming up and being revealed, what's happening with children, what's happening with all the planet and what they're doing, with all of this is so horrifying that in itself can create the fear. But actually, it needs to come up so that it can be released. You need to see it. Everyone needs to see it. Where I'm going with this is that people shouldn't be fooled by what they're seeing, because that's not telling you the true story. And the true story is underneath it, and you've got to push away the appearances. That's not to say that you mustn't have regard to what's going on or to say it's not going on, because it is. But to know why it's happening and to know what the end result of all that is that it's coming to the surface so that it can never happen again. We're not going to have this again. It will not happen again. And women are coming to say it will not happen again, because we're going to lead from the heart. When you lead from the heart, these things cannot happen. So I think it's so exciting to be here. So exciting to interact with people who are on that journey as well, and are seeing, and partially sighted, whatever you want to say, you're awakening to what is going on. And also just knowing that you're part of it and that you can contribute. Your individual part is important. It doesn't matter what that is. You know, it hasn't got to be something magnificent and in the public eye and all that. Nah, whatever you bring, if it comes from the heart, it's going to transform the world. So that's where I'm at with everything. And that, I don't know, that makes it all right for me to, I'm all right. I'm all right. You know, don't know what to
perfect.
say. Really happy.
Yeah, it's good. It's really good times. Let me ask you some questions now. So what is the best piece of advice a woman has ever given to you?
Be yourself. Be yourself. And I didn't really understand what that was. I do now. Be yourself.
Yeah, I think it's
best piece of advice.
It's like, it seems like the simplest advice, but then to actually find out what yourself is, like we said earlier, to kind of like have that inquiry to understand what is yourself and realize where you are and the story that's been fed to you. As you know, like you said, you know, we're women of color, we come from this and we've done that, and all of these kind of things that kind of just put another lid or another line about how far you can walk forward. And then when you start to erase those and realize you've got this expanse, and then where are you in the center of all those things, that you can actually be all things and then also nothing at all. And that doesn't mean to be nothing without direction. It just means nothing without restriction, even to the point of your gender. You know, it's like, what does it mean to be female? What does it mean to be male? And those have been very rigid lines up until this point. And I think as well, you know, I've learned recently, just from like paying more attention to younger generations who don't have such strict guidelines on there just being two genders. They're about, you know, you're here, this is what you're about, and you be about.
My son told me that. My oldest son, 27-year-old now, but I remember him saying to me when I said something like that, I was saying something very gender and very kind of rigid. He said, what are you talking about, Mum? There's no boundaries. There's none of that. And I thought, good for you, because you are not working on any kind of limitation there. You're just allowing. And so I took from him, my son, people come along and teach you, you know, they teach you when you don't really expect to be taught by them, but they do. And we all need to pay attention to the children.
Always.
Because they tell us lots.
Always. Yeah. And which woman would you say represents higher energetic resonance to you?
My mum. I don't even think she would even accept that, but it's my mum, definitely. My mum came in the early 60s, and wow, her journey is just phenomenal. I mean, you know, some of the things that she had to do and some of the things that we then were exposed to, and then my father going back to Nigeria, her raising us on our own here, and him dying, and mental health, and she's just that really inspiring person who, like I said, I don't even think she knew she would recognize what I'm saying about herself, because she was just being who she was and is. All I know is she's just given me so much. I didn't even realize. You just don't realize it. All the things that she did. You remember she came in the 60s. There's all that stuff, you know, that was going on, the racism that was going on, and the hurdles that she would face in housing and bringing up children and all these things that was just constantly there. And there she was, moving through it all, teaching me, because I'm there watching. I'm watching this thing, you know, going on, not really realizing how, you know, and she was so political. We had James Baldwin books in our library. We had lots of different, and when I say in our library, it's just stuff she was reading. It wasn't stuff we were reading, but it was there. I was exposed to all sorts of things on a political level that I didn't even, you know, it wasn't obvious in that sort of way. It was just how my mum was, how she presented. And it obviously gave me inspiration for various things. I mean, obviously I'm the first lawyer in the family. No, not true. because my dad trained in mercantile law back in Nigeria, but here in the UK, first trained lawyer. My brother's an accountant, and so those professions that are inverted commas revered, and we kind of went into them, and we came from this background that was not necessarily where you would have thought. We didn't start off with a spoon in our mouth, kind of silver spoon in our mouth, or a gold one. My mum, I just have this, and the resilience. And when we have conversations now, I'm just like, some of the things she used to say would have said to me in the past, like, don't cast pearls amongst swine. And I never knew what that meant.
Yeah.
I was like, what's she saying that for? I actually thought she was not being particularly nice at the time, but I know what that means now. I have no, and that was planted so long ago into my consciousness by her, long, long time ago. So my mum, that's just it. There's lots of other famous women out there who've done things that I have definitely, funnily enough, this is not a woman of colour, but in the acting world, Betty Davis was my and you know why? Her acting craft was so extraordinarily out in front of all the people that were around her at the time. And I used to watch her, and I just to think, she's so inspiring. She wasn't a woman of colour, but she was a woman. And she, bringing what she brought from her craft. And I thought, she can do that, I can do anything. She could do that, I could do that. I could do anything. So it's just interesting. Anyway,
great.
You have another question for me, I'm sure.
I do. What's your favourite self-care ritual or practice?
I like to swim. And that's really important for my physical body to receive care. Because, with swimming, it touches every part of your body equally. And so there's a balance there. So I like that. So swimming is a regular thing of mine. I do. If I could do it 7 days a week, I would. But it's, using public baths is a challenge. Swimming pools, challenge.
Yeah.
So I like to do that. I like to have baths in with salts. I think there's a kind of cleansing ritual there too. At least once a month, a salt bath with some essential oils. Then, obviously, the meditation every day. This is really important, And as I'm progressing or journeying along, I know that it's really key for me, I think you need to give yourself that time. Take yourself out of the day. Take yourself out of the hustle and bustle regularly. So you should be doing this. Wrong word. I attempt to do this at least 3 times a day, if I'm able to. So, and when I don't do it,
you notice, right?
Big, massive time. All sorts of madness. All sorts of things happen when it's not done, when I haven't done it, when I haven't achieved it. My aim is to be a constant meditation person, meaning that constantly, I'm all the time, I'm in a state of meditation, even though I'm in the world. So maybe that's a big ask, a big task.
I think it's a doable thing, because space can be found
everywhere,
anywhere, and even though you may not have kind of like gone to like your altar space or your meditation room or whatever area that you've set out for it, sometimes just kind of walking through a park or sitting and looking at a tree, or closing your eyes, or putting your feet in the grass for even just 2 minutes, and just trying to close down for a little bit and find that center. That in itself is a meditation that can just give you a quick reboot when things get crazy. I know what you mean. When you don't do it, when I don't have it, when those moments go too long, it ain't nice. I don't feel good. And for me, I wonder, I can see how people are fearful of what's going on in the world if they don't have any kind of mindfulness practice, because without it, I can feel myself being like looped into the distraction, because the world is set up to distract you from the minute you get up till the minute you go down. So there's no way for you to be in connection with self unless you actually carve it out and create a discipline and a practice and make it an essential and imperative part of your day, and it will make a difference. I believe this.
I mean, I've been meditating for a very long time. I can remember the first time. So obviously, my son is 27, so it's probably about 25 years ago. I don't know, maybe 24 or something. Anyway, and when I can remember when I first started out, I didn't even know that actually that what I was doing was meditation. To be fair. But I'd be sat in this chair, and I was fixated to this chair, and I knew the protocol was then, you had to sit for 45 minutes an hour, and all this business, and it was really tough. And it was like, and I can remember my mind wandering around all over the place, and things coming in. Oh, I've got to get up and go and wash the dishes. Oh, all that chat that goes on. And where I'm at with this now is that it's just emptying your mind of anything, even for 5 minutes, is massively important. Just empty that mind. And because in order for you to, in my personal journey, what I've found is that when I've expanded is when I've been able to allow space for things to come in, new things, not crowded out by all that. Oh, I've got to go and wash the dishes. No, I've got to do that. So just creating it. So you don't have to sit on the chair for 45 minutes is what I'm trying to get at. You can do it in 5 minutes.
And that's a hard thing for people to do as well. If you're coming from zero point to sit and be still for 45 minutes, you've got to, your thoughts, you've got to kind of like deal with the fact that you're going to be crowded out by that and not over and put off by that. So, the 0 to 5 is enough.
And then it's just constant practice, but it's a ritual. But I think it's a state of being more than anything else, really, rather than a ritual. Because ritual kind of is all in itself a limitation, whereas what I'm saying is it's me. It's what I, does that make sense? So not something that is outside of myself.
Yeah,
it's a state of being.
For sure. So good. And so what have you got that's coming up in the immediate future that you want to talk about?
I have applied to become a spokesperson for a particular policy within this Women's Equality Party that I've joined, and I'm just going to see where that takes me. So that's again a sort of someone else deciding, or people deciding whether or not I've got the necessary skills to actually be the spokesperson for this. That's quite exciting. And, I say to myself, I got this, because I could do it. Again, it's one of the, I could do this. This is stretching me, but it's not beyond me. I got this. You just need to let me do it. So we'll see where that goes. And so in September, we'll find out what that brings. Mm-hmm. I'm going to do a pop-up in November, which I was reminded of yesterday on emotional intelligence. I'm going to do this. I'm going to have to focus a little bit, because again, it's like one of those things where I've got all these things in the pot, and I've got to make sure that I do each one of them, not half-heartedly. So that pop-up's coming up in November, and I'm very excited, because this pop-up about emotional intelligence is being run in 166 countries across the globe. So it's not just a Maureen Obi
like a virtual pop-up then? Is it online?
No. There are actual events. So the point I'll tell you what it is. It's celebrating the UN. Well, part of it is celebration of the United Nations CRC, children, I can't see now, I don't even remember what it's called. Anyway, UNCRC, which is an instrument or a document that was created in 1990. It's also to do with children's rights. And so this is part of which is why it's happening in November, because that's when this instrument came into force, if I correctly remember I hope I'm right on this. But anyway, the point is that there are actual physical pop-up events across the world. And they are orchestrated by an organisation, one of whom is 6 Seconds. I don't know if you know anything about 6 Seconds, but they are probably one of the only organisations globally that pushes emotional intelligence they want 1 billion emotionally intelligent people on the planet, and that's what they're aiming for. So they're pushing this, and I'm part of it in the sense that I told you children are really important. I've told you that it's really important we get it right with the kids, then the world will be right too. It'll be a better place. So it's online, but like I said, they are individual pop-up events that people are hosting across 166 countries in November. And I'm excited by that because 166 countries, people are really talking about emotional intelligence in a different way. Yeah. And I, for one, am very excited by that. So that excites me. And then what else have I got? Well, I've got this, Carol. Every day I wake up, I say, what's new? What can I do today? New opportunities. It's exciting. Every day is exciting because new things can occur every day. I've just got to be open to them. So the ones that I've talked about are ones that are planned, but it's the unplanned ones that are probably more, I don't know, probably more exciting because I don't know what they're going to be. And the day will hold what it holds.
Yeah.
And but I'm going to be saying yes to life, like I've said yes to anything that's going to.
And finally, can you just let everyone know where we can find you online? So, like website, if you use social media, let us know that as well.
I am on Facebook. My name is Maureen Obi, so I'm on Facebook. You can look me up. I'm a very unusual looking woman, she says. And then I have 2 websites. So my work website, which is where I'm doing my barrister work, is www.familymatters.uk.com. I have my emotional intelligence website. The organisation is thisonefamilymatters.org.uk, and so that's the website too. So it's www.thisonefamilymatters.org.uk, and that's where you'll see all my stuff about the building of emotional intelligence. I'm also on Twitter, so my handle is at Annabelle19. So that's okay. Me, and hopefully you will see me more fully in the course of the next few months because of this political journey that I'm on. Because of course I've produced a small video already for one thing, but I'll be out there. So look out for me, Maureen Obi of the Women's Equality Party.
Perfect. I'm excited to see what that unfolds for you as well.
Yes.
Having met you in such quote unquote random circumstances, and then just being fascinated by you within the course of like 2 stops on the Victoria line, which is probably the fastest moving line in London.
Yeah, probably is. Yeah, I agree with that.
Hang on, it's like if we need to have a conversation, and I can attest to how compelling and how interesting you are, just from like finding that. And that's why I really was just interested in speaking more to you. So I can't see why it wouldn't expand into more, because we need women and movers and shakers and heart-centered, emotionally intelligent women at the forefront, especially in politics. It's a necessary thing.
Well, just like I say, I'm on the journey, but no clue where it's taking me. But you know what? I think that's got to be what journeys are about. You don't know what you're going to experience, and you just take it as it arrives and it presents itself to you. And I'm liking that about what I'm doing, that I actually don't know where anything's going to end up, but I don't care. That's not the issue. The journey is the key. I'm thankful that you have allowed me on part of your journey. And I know that day we met, we were supposed to meet. And there was no question of any kind of, coincidence, or, those things that one says. This was divinely created for both of us.
Yeah.
And I am just so pleased that I am, part of this journey. Thank you.
No problem. Thanks to Maureen for joining me on this episode of Her Conversations, and thank you for listening. You can discover more about me by visiting my website, that's carolmaywhittick.com. Follow me on Facebook under Carol May Whittick, or my Instagram name is Casmic, that's CAZMICK. You can also follow my other account, which is at Her Life Academy on Instagram, which is all about instruction and inspiration for the awakening woman. Her Life Academy will be relaunching later on in the year. And I would also appreciate you leaving a comment, liking and sharing any episodes. And if you subscribe, you'll be notified as soon as a new episode gets published. So until the next week, thank you for listening to this one, and take care. Thank you.